Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sprint 239 review. This was a normal 2-week sprint. Let's get started. I'll start with the overview. I have an announcement on the community side. Jeffrey will do the UI, Adam on providers, and then Joe on the platform. As you can see, this was a relatively light sprint with 60 PRs merged this sprint. And I think it's because we're focusing on tightening up a lot of bug fixes, a little bit of enhancements. Last sprint review, I announced the ManageIQ Kinteros 1 release. Just wanted to announce it again here today, just to get it out there. So we've released Kinteros 1, so please check out the blog post, see what's in it, and give it a try. And over to Jeffrey on the UI.
Hey, so in Sprint 239, a total of 6 PRs got merged into the UI Classic repository, out of which 4 are related to bug fixes and 2 others. I can explain about them in the following slides. This PR is related to a bug fix from Keenan. Only the icons for the task and the workflow state was being rendered properly, and the rest of them were displaying a plain icon. So Keenan introduced a few additional checks to identify the status, and it's now returning appropriate icons. Next slide. This PR is a fix to design for the survey summary component, which looked a bit squashed. And we had extra space towards the right-hand side. And Gilbert expanded the summary section for the surveys, and he added a few CSS to occupy the entire width of the container. Next slide. In the cloud provider CIC dashboard, the count of the images was not matching the number of images seen on the list view. The list was not including the OpenStack Cloud Manager volume snapshot template and volume templates. So NASA made a small fix by removing the name scope method, which was used to filter the items for the list. Next slide. Another PR from Gilbert to fix the guest device summary pages where the breadcrumbs was missing and the print summary button was not working. Next slide. Gilbert updated the Lodash version from 4.1.7 to 4.17.102 4.17.21, and finally we have a PR from Joe to update the UI JSONs for May 31st translations. That's all from the US side. Over to Adam for the providers.
Thanks, Jeffrey. A lot of work on embedded Terraform this sprint since it was getting over the finish line, lots of follow-up fixes. So we are now passing a certs volume to the OpenTofu runner on appliances so that it can enable TLS on the internal API. We had a fix for the OpenTofu runner Postgres connection being refused on appliances. We implemented service refresh for the Terraform template so that during ordering we can get the current status of the Terraform order. The default port for OpenTofu was changed by Brandon to 6,000 to match what it would be in production. We had a bunch of fixes for the container deployment for OpenTofu runner, mainly around volumes and owner permissions. We fixed an issue with the systemd service for non-root users. It was not logging in, it was not enabling Linger for the ManageIQ user, and so systemd was throwing a bunch of warnings, even though everything was mainly working. It was filling the logs with some warnings about that, so got that fixed up. We're now passing dialog options that are passed through as extra bars to flow through down to the OpenTofu runner. Previously, the dialog values were being ignored, and so only hard-coded extra bars that were picked by the service designer were being passed through. So now we're passing through the dialogues as well. We implemented authentication for the OpenTofu runner API. We're using the V2 key on both sides, so that it was easy to implement the password or shared authentication that way. We had a fix to only show the buttons to add credentials and repositories if the embedded Terraform role is enabled. This is a similar behavior to embedded Ansible. Previously, you could create a credential and it would just sit on the queue and not be processed because there were no workers with that role active. And finally, we fixed a service state going to success even if the Terraform provision failed. So now if the order of the OpenTofu runner fails, the service will go to a failed state as well. Next slide. For workflows, we added an embedded Ansible built-in workflow method. So if you have embedded Ansible playbooks, you can call them as part of a flow ASL. So you would just provide either the ID of the playbook or the repository and playbook path. So you can look it up either way. We're also checking that the configuration script payload is an embedded Ansible playbook. Previously, it was looking for any configuration script payloads at the base, but that would include a bunch of other possibilities. So now we're ensuring that what you've provided is an embedded Ansible playbook. And we're also defaulting the from value for the built-in email method to whatever is set in the SMTP settings for the application. And for flow, Keenan simplified the state long name to use the payload as opposed to the class name. We also changed the state to only modify context under the state key. So it was kind of bleeding, state concern was kind of bleeding out above into other contexts. And we fixed that up so that workflow sets everything that's not in state, and state essentially stays within its own context. Keenan fixed the handling of result path $, since it was supposed to overwrite the output and we were merging it. So if you give it just result path $, it now behaves properly according to the spec. And Keenan also fixed a couple of bugs with retrier handling. Off by one errors always get you. And I think that's it for providers. Over to Jeff.
Thanks, Adam. For platform enhancements and improvements, Sudhir added the Terraform runner URL environment variable for Podify workers. Adam set the OpenTofu runner URL environment variable so the application can access the OpenTofu runner API. I allowed the Rails 7 gem in the schema gem spec and added it to the test matrix. We're still locked to Rails 6.1 in the application, but this will help us migrate to Rails 7 as we can test with Rails 7. Next, I removed code conditionals in the schema repo for Rails versions less than 6.0. We extracted message strings from the code on May 31st and updated the translations based on that. And the bots updated the Podify dependencies. Next slide. For platform bugs, Brandon locked down FFI to versions less than 1.17.0 due to build problems. I updated the Rails gems to the latest security release, 6.1.7.8. Adam fixed an issue where we had appliance-specific property files used in Podify, so he fixed that. To fix a UI bug, Jace added a migration to add Vault credential ID to service templates. Serialized options column. Next slide.
And that's all for our Sprint 239 review. Our next Sprint 240 review will be on June 26th at the usual place and time. And I'd like to thank all the presenters today, everyone who contributed, and please get out there and check ManageIQ Kinteros 1. Thanks, everyone.